Our story begins at Lee's apartment where it is empty. Presently, the door opens and Lee enters, wearing a black suit and with a mournful look on his face. As he sits down, he buries his head in his hands. He then looks up to see he has missed a few missed calls and a text message. "Hey, buddy, hope you're doing okay. We need the leader of the Bushwhackers in tip-top shape for our next mission." He looks at the camera.
He's really not too good at comforting people, is he? All business, formal, stiff. Still, it's the thought that counts.
He puts the phone down and goes to the kitchen where he opens the refrigerator and pulls out a bottle of beer. As he drinks, he hears another ping and looks at his phone.
Bro, now isn't the time for...
He sees a link and clicks on it. It cuts to a cartoon and a voice narrating. According to folklorists and locals, there supposedly lived a hermit at the top of Mount Tateyama who had found the meaning of life. For centuries, the hermit would pass his secrets onto an apprentice, who would then share it with locals coming to him for advice. It was said that the hermit would permit the pilgrim to ask one question, and the answer given would be so profound it would change the pilgrim forever. It is said that the hermit will only answer your question if you bring him a gift of either sweet cakes or sake, and you are expected to keep your questions short and to the point. He would respond in kind, somewhat cryptic, while simultaneously obvious. A popular question brought by pilgrims deals with pain, healing, and loss. To this day, the hermit is visited by thousands, which are private and cameras are not permitted. Lee looks at the phone and then turns to the camera.
I take it back. He does have a way of comforting people, but in his own weird way.
It cuts to an undulating stairway, resembling a red snake crawling up the side of the mountain. Lee sees that he's the only person there and, gritting his teeth, proceeds to climb the stairs. As he climbs, he feels his leg grow heavier and heavier until he stumbles on one of the steps. As he gasps, he looks down to see just how far he's climbed. He coughs and draws his breath and slowly staggers up the stairs before finally gaining the strength to carry on, his feet plodding along the ancient stairwell. He presently reaches the sanctuary perched near the top of the mountain. He wipes the sweat from his brow and stumbles in to see no one there. He surveys the sanctuary. It is sparse in appearance and yet filled with an ambiance that is rich. The very few candles twinkle like stars in the darkness, and he feels himself getting lost in the moment until... "Can I help you?" He comes around to see a monk standing there.
Oh, yeah, are you the hermit?
The monk stares at him and then shakes his head. "No, I am just the translator."
Huh. Is he, in?
The monk gestures towards the doorway, and as Lee is about to head in, the monk clears his throat and he sees he is motioning for him to remove his shoes. He does so and sets his shoes near the entrance of the sanctuary. He then remembers the gifts and produces a small bottle of rice wine, which he presents to the monk. The monk silently gestures for him to follow, and he does so. The monk motions for Lee to kneel before a small table, which he complies. He hears a low chanting emanate from the darkness, and then the hermit appears. The monk bows in respect, and Lee follows suit. The hermit then kneels and looks across the table at Lee. "What is your question?" Lee opens his mouth, but nothing emerges. He draws his breath and ponders for a second. The hermit himself remains placid, and after a few minutes, he looks at the hermit.
How do I get over losing someone so close and dear to me? I just had to say goodbye to the two people who meant the world to me. And I I just don't know what to do.
The monk translates. The hermit says nothing but gets up and walks to a corner. Lee sits there, staring at the hermit. He then motions for the monk to come forward and hands him a piece of paper, which he then presents to Lee.
Thanks? I don't read Japanese, though.
Hermit says, an ant crawls through the grass, dragging behind a great lump of sugar. He never ponders on the steps he's taken, but only the ones to take. And when he reaches home, he forgets all the past steps, for they are made and can never be repeated the same way. Lee glares at the hermit, but decides to say nothing. As he gets up, he bows to the monk and then to the hermit, and then proceeds to exit the sanctuary. As he slowly steps down, he sees pilgrims making their way up, excited to know what the hermit will say.
Man, those poor bastards. If only I could tell them. I really, really do want to tell them.
He stops and looks after a couple walking up the steps. He then thinks the better of it and proceeds his journey downward. As he walks down the path, he sees people going about their business. Old people meditating, children running around the park, and young people taking selfies. As he walks, he goes to a local izakaya where he sits down for lunch. After lunch, he begins walking as if in a daze when he hears a voice. Lee Suchek. He turns around to see a man standing at a black car. Without thinking, he walks over and gets in. As the car drives, he continues to ponder. He sees the ant trudging through the grass, leaving prints on the ground, somewhat symmetrical. The pattern repeats as it plods along, never pondering on anything else but just getting home. When he gets out, he sees himself at a private runway with a cargo plane. He then sees two familiar faces.
What are you two doing here?
Luca and JJ wave. We're heading to Kiev. Lee stops.
Why?
Luca hands him a folder.
The
Daidoki. Apparently, they were behind the attack on the North Pole in the failed invasion of Alaska. It seems the CIA thinks this is the mission for us. Yeah, isn't that something?
Alright then.
As they walk towards the plane, Luca stops him. So, how you doing? After the funeral? You feeling alright? You, need to talk? Lee thinks for a second.
You know, I haven't thought about it much.
As they get onto the plane, a small smile appears on Lee's face as he looks at the piece of paper given him by the hermit, and he nods approvingly as the plane takes off.